I made the mistake a few years ago to suggest that we have an intermission in the middle of our services because it's long and we're all tired at this point. And I said, get up and stretch, and then everybody left. So I'm not doing that to you today.
I'd be good if there was popcorn.
Fair enough. I would say for Yom Kippur, but not so much. All right. In the magical words whispered to Kevin Costner in The Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. Likewise, in the sage words of our Torah, Va'asu li mikdash v'shachanti betocham, build for me a holy space, and I will dwell amongst them. The vision comes before the people and the practice. Herein lies our path to regrowth. Indulge me while I take advantage of this opportunity at our PJV Rosh Hashanah service. What a beautiful way to enter into our new year, together as a united community. In the words of our Siddur, above humanity and divine unity, Israel places the unity which is divine. The Mikdash, the holy temple in Jerusalem, was not just built for one community, but was a place and a space for the entire Jewish people, the unity which is divine. That is not to say that we need one building. Rather, this is to say that we need to feel unified as a movement and as a Jewish people in whichever space we find ourselves. The building of a holy space is not limited to the tangible bricks and mortars. Kedusha, holiness, transcends the physical and resides in the spiritual, which is timeless and without limits. In other words, the unity of our progressive Jewish movement transcends our individual congregations and resides within our shared vision, mission, and values. Herein lies the power of this morning's service. In recent years, the progressive Jewish community has been quite turbulent. There have been many changes and a tremendous amount of hurt, uncertainty, and even disappointment. Some of us have been affected directly. Others, slightly more removed, no doubt sensed some of the aftershocks. Each of our PJV communities, in their own way, have also endured several challenges. So this morning is an opportunity to think about us, to think about the progressive movement in Victoria and around our region, to ask ourselves how we can rebuild and strengthen ourselves individually and collectively, and to reflect upon the foundational questions: what is our purpose? What do we stand for? What is our potential? And how can we tap into that potential to truly flourish? And what a better time to ask these questions than at the beginning of our new year. Thus, inspired by our rich tradition, let us consider a four-step process of tshuva that I believe can guide us both as individuals and as a united community to return to our core mission or purpose, commence a process of regrowth and rejuvenation, and help us actualize our potential as a strong, vibrant, and unified community. First, we have to recognize both our shortcomings and our strengths. Just as we read in this morning's Parsha, Abraham heeded the word of God, demonstrating courage and commitment, intending to do the right thing. However, many would argue he missed the mark and thus damaged the trust in his relationship with his son Isaac and his wife Sarah. It is easy to criticize Abraham's actions and his willingness to sacrifice his son behind his wife's back because we know how the story ends. However, none of us have stood in Abraham's shoes. Yet his faith, courage, and commitment enabled the continuation of the covenant. Likewise, it's easy for us to blame and find fault in all that has gone wrong. However, it is more productive to acknowledge both our personal and communal shortcomings and where we have missed the mark, for these too are part of our story that has brought us to where we are today. It is equally important that we actively and intentionally identify and affirm our strengths, even when they feel invisible or buried, both the strengths we continue to manifest and those we have developed as a result of our challenges. The second step in our Communal Tshuva process is letting go. We cannot allow feelings of anger, hurt, or disillusionment to become the raison d'être for what we do or don't do next. We must be willing to relinquish mistakes, failures, regret, missed opportunities, the could-haves or should-haves, and the pain of our past to get unstuck in order to progress. We cannot control what has happened to us in the past, but we can choose how we respond to it in the present. The choice is how we frame our mindset and work together with using our abilities individually and as a united progressive Jewish community right now as we move forward into this new year. The third step of the tshuva process involves identifying, clarifying, and reaffirming our purpose, what we stand for, and why we actually matter. After all, what's the point of building a Judaism for the future if we cannot find a reason for it in the present? In the late 19th century, a nascent Reformed Judaism stood for change and integration, specifically integration of modernity into Jewish practice, enabling European Jews to maintain their Jewish practice while participating in the mainstream society of the citizenship of the countries in which they lived. The teachings of Rabbi Abraham Geiger and Leopold Zuntz introduced the radical concepts of mixed-gendered seating during prayer services, the use of the vernacular or mother tongue in addition to Hebrew during services, and the revival of the sermon, so blame them. They integrated knowledge and practices from secular society, including literature, music, and science, to inform and shape their Jewish practice. They rejected the either-or idea. One is either Jewish or modern. Instead, they stood for a both-and model. One can be a Jew and a modern citizen of any state. But let's be honest. Today, in the 21st century, most of our community takes this radical innovation for granted. Jews in Australia today are quite comfortable with our blended identities of being Jewish and Australian. 21st century Jews are faced with a diametrically opposed challenge to those of our early reformers. Rather than struggling with the inclusion and integration into a society that has excluded Jews for so long, we now struggle with having too many options and multiple identities, creating competing commitments with insufficient time to engage in them all. So clearly, identifying what we as Jews stand for and why it matters helps secure our place in the competition for Jewish engagement is no longer a given. 21st century Jews are looking for something different to understand and engage in our Judaism. Just before the turn of the century, I joined with approximately 1,800 American Reform rabbis to embark on a historic process of creating the Statement of Principles of Reform Judaism, adopted at the 1999 Pittsburgh Convention, designed to answer these very same questions. What do we stand for, and why do we matter? The preamble said, and I quote, "Today, when so many individuals are striving for religious meaning, moral purpose, and a sense of community, we believe it is our obligation as rabbis, once again, to state a set of principles that define Reform Judaism in our time. Throughout our history, we Jews have remained firmly rooted in Jewish tradition, even as we have learned much from the encounters with other cultures. The great contribution of Reform Judaism is that it has enabled the Jewish people to introduce innovation while preserving tradition, to embrace diversity while asserting commonality, to affirm beliefs without rejecting those who doubt, and to bring faith to sacred texts without sacrificing critical scholarship. When I reflect upon the past 25 years in my rabbinate, and I consider our movement's standout moments and profound impact, I can identify 3 central tenets that we proudly stand for today and that I believe unifies us as a movement: diversity, inclusion, and action. Diversity. We walk the talk that there is more than one way to be Jewish. We stand for acting with integrity in our Jewish choices that both elevate our souls and help bring about tikkun olam, repair to the modern problems in our society and our world. The prayers we shorten, skip, or add, the new music we introduce, our new rituals such as healing services, women's sederim with Ashkenazi and Sephardi charoset, VCE blessings, and the non-binary B'nai Mitzvah ceremonies and conversion certificates are all ways we acknowledge and embrace diversity in our community. Recognizing that not all Jews are religious or choose to attend services at all, yet seek engagement with other Jews through alternative means, like volunteering, participating in Netzer, furthering Jewish education, going Israeli dancing, attending the Jewish film or writers' festivals, or just hosting Shabbat dinners. What is most important is that we provide communities where Jews of all varieties and interests can connect and find a home, where one Jewish expression is not valued more than the other. In last week's Haftarah, we read from the book of Isaiah, Ki lo machshavotechem, velo darchachem dacharai ne'um Adonai. My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares Adonai. Isaiah's message reinforces the idea that we are all different. The way we think, the choices we make, our needs, our wants, our style of prayer, our belief or lack of belief in God, our politics, our music preferences. My thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, and that's okay. Likewise, the Babylonian Talmud said, Elu ve'elu devarim Elohim chayim. These and these are the words of the living God, referring to the competing interpretations of Hillel and Shammai, conveying the message that diverse interpretations and expressions of Judaism can be correct, valid, and necessary. Thus, our Jewish tradition has a long history of encouraging diversity, reinforcing the notion that there is more than one right way to understand and express our Judaism. Not too long ago, on Tisha B'Av, we held 3 different services, progressive, conservative, and Orthodox, and came together right here in this room for the chanting of Echa, Lamentations, and a guest speaker. We have been engaging in this model for many years, alternating between Kilat Nitzan, Shira Chadasha, and TBI. This is a celebration of diversity between Jewish communities, enacting Jewish unity, reminding us that unity does not mean uniformity. This morning's service has also endeavored to model unity without uniformity within our movement in a different way, by bringing the prayer leadership of the different communities together to imbue the service with the diverse flavor of their community while davening together as one. Because different people have different needs and preferences, acknowledging and strengthening the individuality of each of our communities ultimately strengthens our movement as a whole. Thus, diversity is a central tenet of what we stand for. Hand in hand with diversity is the second central tenet for which we stand, inclusion. Enabling a diversity of expression means that we welcome and include a diversity of people and practices into our community. We are the first Jewish movement to welcome interfaith families, officiate at same-sex weddings, hold Pride Shabbats, offer non-binary life cycle ceremonies, officiate at Brit Levat, welcoming ceremonies for girls into the covenant, and recognize patrilineal descent. Go us. We tailor life cycle ceremonies and community-based activities for people with special needs. We do this to ensure that all people feel accepted, included, and at home in our spaces. We continue to offer online streaming options for people who do not live in proximity to our synagogues, who are ill at home or in hospital, who are traveling, who suffer from agoraphobia or severe social anxiety, whose children need a sleep during service times, or who simply prefer to do shul in their PJs with a cup of coffee. We do what we can to be welcoming to all of our members and visitors because we proudly stand for inclusivity. There is no other Jewish community in Australia that can make this claim. The third tenet I believe we stand for is action. When God gave us the Torah at Mount Sinai, we said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear. Judaism has always been a tradition of action. Beliefs and intentions are irrelevant if they do not lead to action. Orthodox Rabbi Daniel Hartman, president of the iconic pluralistic Jewish Institute in Jerusalem, the Shalom Hartman Institute, said in his recent visit to Australia, and I paraphrase, "Religion is here to help us actualize our moral compass, not to compromise it." He challenged us to talk and do Judaism on our terms unapologetically. Recently, I signed a statement with the co-presidents of the UPJ, the PJV, and Netzer about the voice to Parliament. 2 weeks ago, the PJV sponsored a panel discussion about the voice. There was a tremendous amount of opposition and a tremendous amount of support for both. Both the statement and the panel openly acknowledged the diversity of opinions on the issue. Again, unity does not mean uniformity. We were united in our belief that we all must educate ourselves and make our own informed decision. We continue to respect the diversity of opinions and actions motivated by informed decision-making. But sitting quietly on an issue that affects us is not something we stand for. Just like we did not sit quietly during the same-sex marriage plebiscite, nor did we sit quietly during the doctor-assisted dying bill. Just like we don't sit quietly when we see the Israel that we love making decisions that conflict with our core values and challenge the status of women, non-Israeli Orthodox rabbinate-approved conversions, and equal rights for non-Jewish citizens in Israel. Our Jewish tradition demands us to speak out and take action. We may not all agree. That's okay. After all, we recognize and stand for diversity. However, we cannot only stand for the diversity on our terms, but we must embrace the diversity of others and fight for the right for one another to be heard. We must still come together as a community because, regardless of our politics, our personal preferences, or our individual choices, we stand for inclusion. But we do not sit stumm. We educate ourselves and we act because we stand for action. So we, as individuals and as a progressive Jewish movement, imbue ourselves with the beauty and depth of our Jewish tradition, inspired by God, motivated by Torah, and proudly stand for a Judaism with diversity, inclusion, and action that matters for us today. So why does it matter? Well, I'll share with you in the words of the bar mitzvah boy's father this past Shabbat. He said to me, "Thank you, Rabbi. You brought me and my family back to Judaism. I didn't think that that could happen." Why? Because we offered a diverse expression of Judaism that included his family and gave Jewish voice and action to the values that his family holds dear. We matter because we provide an authentic Jewish space for Jews to find connection and meeting in Jewish expression on their own terms, to find congruence between their values and postmodern skeptical thinking, and to actualize their moral compass through tikkun olam, making choices that create a better world. And finally, the last step of this tshuva process is about taking responsibility. Otherwise, these words fall into the category of good intentions and missed opportunities. What does that mean, and what does it look like? Well, this is only day 2 of 5784. Let's take some time to acknowledge our strengths and our shortcomings, to recognize what we need to let go, to identify our purpose, what we stand for, and why we matter, and take responsibility to move forward together. And then, let's talk to each other. Let's talk to people who think and do Judaism differently from us. Let's prioritize room in our lives for Jewish thinking, learning, and acting. Let Judaism inform our life choices so we can coexist or challenge us to be our best selves. Let us continue to respect, accept, and include those who think and do Judaism differently from us. Let us speak out and act and not wait for the next opportunity. If not now, when? Only then will we tap into our potential to truly flourish. I look forward to building this vision with you this coming year. In so doing, together, we can build this mikdash, a holy community, and watch as they come to dwell amongst us. Shana Tova.